Her light was still on. It always was. Through the thin curtains of her upstairs window, a warm, amber glow leaked into the cool night, the kind of light that made everything else on the street look colder. I'd see it sometimes when I came home late from work, half tired, half curious. A steady glow behind soft curtains. Mrs. Linton reading, maybe, or folding laundry, or just sitting still. She always seemed like the kind of person who did things quietly. That night, it was raining. The kind that's soft but constant. A drizzle that makes the air hum. I was carrying a small box for her son, a package that got dropped at my door by mistake. Normally, I would have left it on their porch. But the light upstairs, and the thought of her alone, pulled me in. I knocked once. Then again. The door opened slower than I expected. She stood there barefoot, her hair slightly damp from a shower, wearing a loose sweater that hung off one shoulder. She looked surprised, but not startled, more like she'd been pulled out of a thought she hadn't finished. "Oh," she started, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're, from next door, right?" I nodded and lifted the box. "This got dropped off for your son." She smiled faintly, a little distracted. "He's not home. But, come in, it's wet out." The house smelled like soap and rain. Not perfume, cleaner, subtler. I wiped my shoes on the mat, not sure if I should stay near the door or follow her deeper inside. She set the box on the table and hesitated, just for a moment, before turning toward me again. "Do you want a towel?" she asked. I almost said no, but she was already walking toward the hallway. I heard her open a cabinet, the rustle of fabric. Then silence, a longer one than felt necessary. When she came back, she handed me the towel without looking up right away. Her fingers brushed mine, not on purpose, maybe, but the contact felt too specific to ignore. She didn't flinch. I did. "Thanks," I said, quieter than I may. "Ain't too." Her eyes lifted then, meeting mine for the first time, steady, unreadable. Something flickered there, and for a second, neither of us spoke. The rain outside filled the silence. "You can wait a minute before heading back," she murmured. "It's coming down harder." So I sat, on the edge of her living room chair, towel in hand, pretending to watch the rain streak the window. She leaned against the wall near the kitchen, arms folded loosely, her gaze unfocused, but every so often, I felt it shift toward me. Just slightly. There wasn't much to look at. A quiet house, the clock ticking, a mug half finished beside her. But it was the kind of quiet that pressed close. Not empty, alive. She sighed once, softly, then said, almost to herself, "It's strange how loud a house feels when no one else is home." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. The clock ticked again. The rain softened. She looked over, slow, careful, and for a heartbeat, her eyes lingered longer than they should have. Then she looked away, pushing her sleeve up her arm as if nothing had happened. "Anyway," she said, voice lower now, "thanks for bringing that by." I nodded, stood, and handed her the towel back. Our fingers almost met again, but didn't. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, her silence stayed, like a pulse I could still feel long after I closed her door. I didn't see her for 3 days, but I noticed every time I didn't see her, the empty driveway, the unlit porch, the missing light behind her curtains. It's strange how silence becomes heavier once you've shared one that meant something. By the 4th evening, I ran into her by accident. The grocery store on Maple Street, the kind where you can smell the fruit before you see it. I was carrying a basket, trying to look like I wasn't checking every aisle for her, when she appeared near the dairy section. Her hair was tied up this time, glasses on, a few tired strands falling loose around her face. She spotted me. Before I could decide whether to walk past or say something. "Oh," she said again, that same soft start from before. "Hey, you're next door." "Yeah," I managed. "Hi." We both laughed, but quietly. Not from humor, from the awkwardness of pretending we hadn't thought about the last time we saw each other. "How's your son?" I asked, though I knew he was away at college. "Good," she said. "Busy, you know." She reached for a carton of milk, then hesitated. "You can call me Claire, by the way. Mrs. Linton makes me feel older than I am." "Okay," I said, trying not to repeat her name too soon. "Claire." Something about saying it made the air between us change. Not warmer, denser. She looked up, eyes flicking to mine for half a second before she smiled and placed the carton into her basket. "I was actually going to bake something," she said, half to herself. "If you're around later, you could stop by?" I always make too much. I told her I would, and I meant it. That night, her kitchen smelled like cinnamon and butter. She'd baked apple bread, the kind that cracks a little at the top when it cools. She looked relaxed, but her movements said otherwise, cleaning a spotless counter, refilling a glass she didn't drink from. "You didn't have to come," she said when I walked in, even though she'd opened the door faster than last time. "I wanted to." She looked at me then, not suspiciously, not warmly either, just searching. "You remind me of someone," she murmured. "Someone you know?" Her laugh was short. "Someone I used to know? Before things got complicated." I wanted to ask what she meant, but the way her fingers tightened around the dish towel told me not to. Instead, I picked up a piece of the bread and said, "It's good." She smiled. "You didn't even taste it." "I trust you." The words slipped out before I could stop them. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she leaned against the counter, her gaze falling somewhere near my shoulder, anywhere but my eyes. "Shouldn't," she said quietly. "I'm not someone people should trust too easily." Her voice wasn't steady now. It carried something, a hint of guilt, or maybe a memory she didn't want to name. I took a small bite, buying myself silence. The rain had started again outside, tapping against the glass. She rubbed her thumb along the edge of the counter, a small, restless motion that gave her away. "I wasn't trying to," I began. "I know," she interrupted. She stopped. The room felt smaller suddenly. The hum of the refrigerator, the smell of cinnamon, the sound of her breathing, all of it folded inward until there was only her, standing too close. She reached to take my empty plate, and our hands brushed, light, accidental, inevitable. Neither of us pulled away right away. Her breath caught, barely audible, but there. Then she stepped back, her expression unreadable. "I should probably," she started, then didn't finish. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She turned toward the sink, her back to me, shoulders tense. The sound of running water filled the silence between us. And still, even as I stepped outside, the scent of her kitchen followed. Warm, quiet, dangerous in a way I didn't yet understand. It happened again by accident. Or maybe not. Saturday afternoon, the cafe on Birch Lane, the one with the small windows fogged from steam and too many conversations. I came in for a coffee after work. She was already there, sitting by the window with a book open and an untouched cup beside her. I almost turned around, but she looked up before I could. "Hey," she said, smiling in that quiet way of hers, polite, a little uncertain, but enough to make my chest tighten. "Hey," I echoed. I gestured to the chair across from her. "Anyone sitting here?" She shook her head. "Not unless you count my bad decisions." I laughed before I realized she wasn't joking. She smirked faintly, closed her book, and brushed a crumb off the table that wasn't there. Her hand trembled. "Just enough to notice." "I didn't think I'd see you here," I said. "I come here sometimes," she replied, then added after a pause, "when I want to feel like I'm somewhere else." She looked out the window as she said it, and I saw the reflection of her eyes in the glass, soft, distant, maybe a little sad. I wanted to ask what she was running from, but that felt too much like permission. The barista called my name for an order I hadn't realized I'd placed. When I came back, she was stirring her coffee slowly, watching the spoon more than the drink itself. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "Some days I am." Then, quieter. "Other days, I pretend better." Her honesty startled me. I set my cup down, not sure whether to meet her eyes or give her the space she seemed to be protecting. But she looked up first, and when she did, I felt every word I didn't say press against the back of my throat. "I think you're—" I began, then stopped. Her eyebrow lifted, a hint of a smile tugging at her mouth. "Careful," she said. "You sound like you're about to say something you'll have to take back." "Maybe," I admitted. "But maybe I won't." The air between us changed again, the cafe noise fading, replaced by the pulse in my ears. She didn't look away. Neither did I. "Don't," she said finally, almost whispering. "Don't make this harder." "I'm not trying to," I said, my voice lower than I meant it to be. "I know," she said. "That's what makes it hard." Her hand moved toward her cup, but stopped halfway, hovering, close enough that I could feel the warmth of it from across the table. For a second, it felt like she might actually reach out. Then her phone buzzed. The sound cut through the quiet like a blade. She glanced at the screen, her expression tightened, then softened, then fell blank again. "I should take this," she murmured, already standing. I nodded, pretending not to care as she walked toward the back of the cafe, phone pressed to her ear. I watched her shoulders, tense, hunched slightly, and tried not to imagine who was on the other end. By the time she came back, her coffee had gone cold. "Everything okay?" I asked. She smiled, the kind of smile meant to hide things. "It's fine," she said. "It's always fine." But her eyes didn't match her voice. She gathered her things, fingers trembling just slightly as she slid the book into her bag. "I should go," she said. "You know how it is." I didn't, but I nodded anyway. When she passed me, her hand brushed the edge of my sleeve. Deliberate, maybe. Or maybe just gravity playing a cruel trick. Either way, I could still feel it long after she was gone. The sound of the door chime faded, but her absence stayed, louder than any goodbye. It was Sunday, cold enough that breath hung in the air, soft enough that no one wanted to be alone. I hadn't planned to see her, but when I passed the cafe window, she was there again, sitting in the same spot as before, hands around a mug like she needed its warmth to keep her steady. Before I could talk myself out of it, I was inside. She noticed me immediately, that small flicker of recognition, followed by something tighter, unreadable. "You're early," she said. "For what?" "For pretending this isn't strange." She tried to smile after saying it, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I sat across from her anyway. The air between us felt like it was waiting for something. "I wasn't pretending," I said. She exhaled softly. "You're too young to mean that." I looked at her, really looked. The faint tiredness around her mouth, the smudge of ink on her wrist, the way she kept straightening her sleeve even though it didn't need fixing. "You keep saying that like it's supposed to make it untrue." Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "Then help me." That stopped her. She stared down at the mug, thumb tracing the rim, her breath shaky. "It's not about you," she said finally. "It's about me. The mistakes I already made. The people I already hurt." Her voice trembled on the last word. I wanted to reach across the table, but I didn't. The urge sat there between us, almost physical. "I don't want to be one of them," I said. "You won't be," she whispered. "Because I won't let you." The silence after that stretched too long. The cafe noise blurred, spoons clinking, a milk steamer hissing somewhere far away. I watched her fingers tremble slightly as she lifted her cup, then set it down untouched. "Why do you keep showing up?" she asked suddenly. "Why do you keep letting me?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. She looked away, toward the window, then back at me, like she was caught between running and staying still. "I thought I was just being kind," she said softly. "Now I'm not sure. Maybe kindness looks different sometimes." She gave a small, humorless laugh. "That's one way to excuse bad decisions." Her eyes were glistening now, not with tears, but with something close to exhaustion. She rubbed at her temple. "You make it hard to remember where the line is." "I don't think either of us drew it," I said. That got a faint smile out of her, broken, involuntary. She looked down again, shoulders curling inward. "Stop looking at me like that," she murmured. "Like what?" "Like you're waiting for me to say something I shouldn't." I swallowed. "Are you?" Her breath caught. A pause. Then she shook her head, barely. "It wouldn't matter if I was." "Why not?" "Because nothing good starts this close to a mistake." The words should have ended it. But the way she said them, quiet, careful, like she didn't fully believe herself, made me lean forward before I realized I was doing it. Her eyes lifted. For the first time, she didn't look away. We sat there, unmoving, breathing the same shallow air. My hand hovered near hers on the table, close enough that a small movement could close the distance. She didn't pull back. Then, the barista called her name. Loud. Ordinary. She blinked, exhaling as if the spell had broken. Her chair scraped softly as she stood. "Maybe we shouldn't keep running into each other like this," she said, though her voice betrayed her. "Then stop showing up where I already am," I said. That made her laugh, quiet, real this time. But her eyes were wet. She picked up her cup, fingers trembling just slightly, and whispered, so softly I almost missed it. "Maybe next time, I won't." And then she was gone, leaving her warmth, and every unsaid thing, across the table between us. It had been a week since the cafe. 7 days of pretending that space was clarity, that silence meant control. But every night I'd catch myself replaying it. The way her voice broke when she said nothing good starts this close to a mistake. That line kept me awake more than I wanted to admit. So when her text came, short, hesitant, "Could you help me move something?" I didn't even think. Of course I went. When she opened the door, she looked tired, softer somehow. Her hair was up again, a loose strand brushing her cheek. The living room was half shifted. Boxes, an old lamp, the smell of dust and lemon cleaner. Sorry, she said, rubbing the back of her neck. I didn't want to bother you. The bookshelf's heavier than I thought. You're not bothering me. I helped her lift it. She steadied one side, her hand brushing mine briefly, and it was too easy, too familiar, like the week of silence hadn't happened at all. When we set it down, she laughed breathlessly. Still heavier than it looks. Some things are, I said, before realizing how that sounded. She didn't respond, just looked at me, a look that carried both memory and warning. Then she turned away, fiddling with a picture frame. That's when I saw it, the photograph she was trying to straighten. A man, maybe late 40s, smiling beside her. Her hand lingered on the glass longer than necessary. You never mentioned, I started. He's not. She stopped herself, then sighed. He was. My husband. Was. Divorced. 2 years. Now. Her tone was even, but her fingers betrayed her, pressing against the edge of the frame, as if holding back something heavier than the wood itself. He called this morning, she added quietly. He's moving back to town. It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. I felt something cold tighten behind my ribs. And that's good. She hesitated. It's complicated. I laughed, short, sharp, not unkind but too honest. That seems to be a theme with us. Her eyes met mine. I didn't ask you here for this conversation. I know, but it's happening anyway. For a moment, we just stood there. The air between us had changed, not soft now, not fragile, just real. He thinks we might try again, she said finally. For our son's sake. For stability. And what do you think? I think I don't know how to want something without hurting someone. That hit harder than she probably meant it to. She looked at me then, tired, conflicted, still beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. I shouldn't have texted you, she said, voice low. It wasn't fair. Maybe not, I said. But you did. She looked down, almost smiling. You make it sound simple. It feels simple when I'm standing here. She exhaled, shaking her head. Don't say that. I took a small step closer anyway. Close enough that I could see the faint tremor in her hand, the way her breath hitched. Claire, I said softly. She looked up. Our eyes locked, a full second, maybe two, before the knock came at the door. She froze. Through the window, I saw a man, older, carrying a box, smiling faintly as he leaned toward the glass. Her ex-husband. She whispered something I couldn't hear, then turned back to me. You should go. I didn't move. Please, she said, eyes glistening. Before I make this worse. I left before he walked in. But halfway down the street, I heard her voice through the open window, warm, practiced, polite, greeting him the same way she used to greet me. And for the first time, I couldn't tell if walking away was the right thing, or the only thing I could do. A month passed. She hadn't texted. I hadn't either. But I still noticed the things she didn't say. The porch light left on some nights, the window curtains drawn when they never used to be. I told myself it was for the best, that I was giving her space, that whatever this was, it had already burned itself quiet. But one evening, I saw her again, not through chance this time, but because I went looking. The sky was low and gray, the kind of weather that made the street feel like a held breath. Her car was in the driveway. The curtains were half open. I stood there too long before knocking. When the door opened, she looked startled. Then something softened, not quite relief, not quite regret, just recognition. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know. Then why are you? Because I couldn't keep pretending I wasn't. She exhaled, slow, shaky. He's gone, she said after a moment. Back to his apartment. Whatever he came for, it wasn't me. Her voice broke slightly at the end. I didn't move closer, not yet. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be, she whispered. I've spent years apologizing for wanting something different. The room behind her was quiet. Dim light, the faint smell of coffee gone cold. It looked the same, but felt different. Lived in, not lonely. I kept trying to convince myself that what happened between us was just, she paused, searching for the right word, kindness. But it wasn't. My chest tightened. I know. And that's what scares me. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. She didn't stop me. Her eyes met mine, steady, unflinching now. You don't know what it's like, she said. To want something that makes you feel both alive and ashamed at the same time. Don't I? That silenced her. I could feel her pulse in the air, the small, fragile space that had always existed between us, shrinking. I thought about that night, I said. The one when you say nothing good starts close to a mistake. Maybe you were right, but maybe something honest can. She looked down, biting her lip, the same nervous gesture I'd noticed the first night we met. You'll regret this, she murmured. Maybe, but I'll regret not saying it more. Her eyes flickered, and for a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, almost trembling, "Say what?" I swallowed. That I don't know what this is supposed to be. Maybe it can't be anything. But every time I try to forget you, I feel like I'm lying. Her breath hitched. You shouldn't say things like that. Then stop looking at me like you want to believe them. That broke her composure, just a little. She laughed, soft and sad, shaking her head. You make everything sound like a choice, isn't it? She took a step closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath. Her eyes searched mine, as if measuring the weight of what would happen if she didn't step back. Then she reached out, slow, uncertain, and took my hand. Not like a confession, more like surrender. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. If I ask you to stay, will you? Yes, I said. And if I tell you I'm not ready? I'll still be here. Her fingers tightened, just barely. You shouldn't wait for me. I already have. For a long while. We stood there. No promises, no lines crossed. Just the quiet understanding that something between us had already changed. Then she let go, gently, as if releasing something fragile. I don't know where this goes, she said. Neither do I whispered. But I think it's somewhere real. And as I stepped back toward the door, her hand lingered in the air, not holding me, not stopping me, but staying open, like she finally understood she didn't have to hide what she felt anymore. The door clicked softly behind me, and for the first time since I'd met her, the silence between us didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. It's strange how something that once consumed you can fade without ever truly disappearing. A year passed before I saw her again. The street was the same elm trees bending toward the power lines, same porch lights flickering in the early dusk, but the air felt lighter somehow. Like whatever had held me there had finally let go. She was sitting outside her cafe, reading. A thin sweater draped around her shoulders. The light caught her hair in that same uneven way, like it had the day I first noticed her. I almost kept walking, but she looked up, as if she'd felt the pause, and smiled. Not the same smile from before. Softer. Certain. I walked over, half expecting the old tension to hum between us again. It didn't. What replaced it was quieter, recognition, understanding, a kind of peace that only comes when two people have already lived through their almost. You look well, she said. So do you, I answered. And I meant it. She laughed. You always were terrible at small talk. Still am. Her coffee was half finished. I noticed she still stirred it twice before drinking, a habit I'd once found ridiculous, then endearing. We talked, not about what had happened, but about everything else. The books we were reading. The new barista who burned every second cup. How winter had come early this year. But beneath it all, there was an unspoken understanding that we'd both survive the ache and somehow come out softer. At one point, she looked at me and said, "You were right, you know. Something honest did start close to a mistake." I smiled, unsure what to do with the words. And did it last? She looked past me, to the street, where a couple crossed holding hands. It doesn't have to matter. For a moment, that stung, then it didn't. Because she was right. Not all things meant to stay are meant to last. Some just teach you how to feel again. We sat in silence after that, both watching the same horizon, both quietly grateful that what once burned between us had settled into something gentler. Not love exactly, but something shaped like forgiveness. When I finally stood to leave, she didn't stop me. She only said, "I hope you find someone who looks at you the way you looked at me." I already did, I said. That's how I'll know when it's real again. Her eyes softened. You've changed. So have you. I walked away then, but not with the heaviness I'd carried before. The world felt wider, like I'd finally stepped out of the narrow hallway of what if, and into the open air of what now. Some stories don't need endings. They just need understanding. Ours had both. Sometimes, late at night, I still think of her, not with longing, but with a kind of quiet gratitude. Because loving her, even briefly, had taught me something I hadn't known before. That real connection doesn't always ask to be kept. Sometimes it just asks to be seen. Thought balloon reflection prompt for viewers. Did this story stay with you? Would you have wanted them to find their way back? Or did this ending feel right? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? The ones that last, or the ones that change you forever?